If you're just joining us, again, welcome to the webinar, How to Thrive with Smart Tech and a Human Touch. And go ahead and answer the poll on your screen. As you can see, it looks like the most significant barrier that most of you encounter is either resistance to change or a limited understanding of available solutions. So we're actually going to touch on both of those items as well as a lack of training and resources. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Our panelists include Matt Gaillard, CMO of Cloud Call, and Louise Peacock, Head of Sales for the UK and Europe at Tracker. Matt is a strategic, data-driven sales and marketing leader with a solid track record in scaling high-growth tech businesses. Matt's previous senior leadership roles have been at companies such as Microsoft, Nokia, and Orange. He's experienced in both large corporations and startups, building global brand propositions and inspiring leadership and different marketing and sales teams in executional excellence. Welcome, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And now on to Louise. Louise is a highly accomplished sales leader with over 18 years of experience here at Tracker. She's worked with a wide range of clients from startups to large corporations as well, and is always willing to help and mentor her colleagues. Her commitment to excellence and passion for client success make her a true asset to Tracker and the industry. Welcome, Louise.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. As an intro, so we all know recruitment agencies today are facing a whirlwind of challenges. High volume hiring demands put immense pressure on teams to source and place candidates quickly, while the sheer number of applicants can be extremely overwhelming. The hunt for specific skills required specialized knowledge and resources, and the cycle of recurring roles demands efficient processes. On top of that, economic fluctuation and industry shifts have led to mass layoffs, creating larger pool of candidates, but also intensifying competition. These challenges can quickly become bottlenecks, delaying placements and impacting the agency's bottom line. Manual resume screening becomes impossible. Outdated tech stacks can't keep up with the pace of hiring. Without efficient systems, recurring roles can lead to burnout, and the complexities of niche recruitment can slow down the entire hiring process. If left unaddressed, these issues can hinder the growth and even damage the agency's reputation. Today, we'll dive into the common tech-related bottlenecks that are only compounded by the industry-related problems that we just talked about. And more importantly, we'll discuss how to pinpoint those issues and explore strategies to overcome them. So, how can recruitment agencies identify bottlenecks in their tech stack, and how should they approach them? For the first part, how can you identify bottlenecks in your tech stack? It's important to understand that there are two main types of bottlenecks. We have feedback-based or quantitative, and we have data-based or qualitative. So let's go ahead and start with the feedback-based bottlenecks, and I'll go ahead and pass it over to Matt to get us started.
Great. Thanks, Stormy, and thanks for having me on your podcast series. So excited to be here today. So this is a subject that is very close to my heart and Cloud Call's heart. So we're really excited to be here and sort of partner with you on this, because I think so much of what we do and our value proposition is based around these very problems. That we find that our customers face this challenge every time they're thinking about onboarding a new piece of technology. Because, you know, what is the reason, what is the driver for thinking about how you bring in your technology, but also how do you arrange what you have and use what you've got to greatest effect? Because we also know one of the things at the moment in the current sort of economic climate is everybody really wants to make sure they're getting as much as they can from the investments that they make. So I think one of the things that I think are really important and comes from conversations with lots of our customers is it's really important to just wander around the business and have a meaningful conversation with the various stakeholders to really try and understand and identify where you think these bottlenecks are and what these issues are and what the causes and symptoms might be. And again, I think if you think about some of the technology and some of the technology that you use, the way that the admin finds issues or bottlenecks or a lack of data may be very different to a user who's trying to use it to kind of make more placements, or a manager who's trying to oversee their teams. So it's really about how do all of these pieces of technology align in such a way to create a kind of seamless workflow. But to do that, you need to kind of step back and really spend time with each of these audiences to understand where these bottlenecks might be. And I think one thing to note here is, and I find often when we're talking to customers going through this process, is we all create workarounds. As soon as we meet some resistance, we find something that's not working optimally, we'll just quickly go, okay, what I'll do is I'll just kind of create this human intervention. I'll make a spreadsheet, I'll do this, or I'll change that. And what ends up, that workaround becomes the process. And then when someone new joins, they get taught the same bad habits. It's like learning to drive with your dad. You'll pick up all these bad habits rather than doing it properly. So again, I think one of the things is to kind of have an objective view and stand back and look, by having time, conversations, interviewing different stakeholders at different levels of the business, what you'll often find is actually someone at one part of the organization is facing a different example of exactly the same problem in another part of the organization. So again, I think the first thing I would do is a bit of an audit of usage and problems, and looking at where some of the team feel these blockages are, or where things aren't optimal. So talk to people, but all the people, not representatives from each part of the business that use that technology.
Thanks, Matt. Let's go ahead and dive into the data side of things. Lou, do you want to go ahead and give an overview of that?
Yeah, so there's many ways, obviously, in which we can interpret data within a business from a quantitative perspective. Is the same data being used consistently across the organization, for example? Be sure that this is the case first. And then remember, data doesn't solve the problem. It tells you where to look for the problem. There's many places in the data flow that are slower than they should be. We know there are a lot of features in systems that we've purchased, but again, are they being used? By tracking utilization and ensuring adoption, we can start to map out standard metrics and compare them across industry standards or company standards. To simplify things and not have paralysis by analysis, you can basically tie a data point to each of your key workflow points to really understand what drives impact and desired outcomes within the organization. The outcome of metrics should really be impacting revenue, time, productivity, and obviously improve innovation at the same time. So how do you select these metrics? Again, tie them directly to key workflow points, keep them to 5 to 7 metrics maximum, and be sure to hit what's important to the organization. Like Matt says, speak to everybody, then use the function to adopt that, and then finally metrics for the recruiter. So some organization metrics, we could have duration of employment, so long-term retention of your placements, for example. Function metrics could be your time to fill. Recruiter metrics, so these could be response times, outreaches, candidate feedback. Once all of this is determined, review those metrics from time to time, and you will then be able to identify the problem areas and review those processes. So really, you just need to remember, this isn't a linear process. You should be cycling between both of these modes of discovery, qualitative and quantitative. And for workflow analysis techniques and how you can dive deeper into solving the problem, you can use flowcharts, time tracking exercises, or surveys with recruiters. If you're having an issue with time to fill metrics, for example, it's important to know how long a candidate sat before they got to the recruiter, or vice versa. So creating a new status, for example, in your system, waiting for response for candidate or pending manager feedback. All these will be very important.
Thanks so much, Lou. Anything else to add there, Matt?
Yeah, I think I agree with all of that completely. And I think one of the other issues that I think causes bottlenecks is also having some redundant or duplicate systems. So I think the stat is something like 10 years ago, everybody had 10 or 12 SaaS products within their tech stack that help them do their job. People now have on average about 125. So there are all these widgets, there are all these little extra pieces that do a very specific task to help us do our jobs more easily. One, that gets very costly and it gets quite chunky. But also what you'll find is that someone may have left and we're still paying a subscription for a piece of tech that we've replaced with another piece of tech. But information at some point may still be flowing left rather than right. So I think one of the things that you should do as part of your tech stack audit, as well as trying to find out what the kind of user experience problems are, be it, you know, the kind of agent, manager, business owners kind of point of view, but also just actually look at the systems that you've got and check that you're using all of them. And are they the right or the best systems for the job? So quite often some of these sort of redundant or duplicate systems, I think, is another part that you should also look at. And also you might find that you've got scheduling issues between multiple platforms. So it could be, you know, we've talked a lot about trying to identify where the problem is, but sometimes it might actually be quite technical. And, you know, one system isn't talking perfectly or at all to the next system in line, and information is being lost. Therefore, it's slowing everybody down, or information just isn't where it needs to be.
Into consideration. Great. So we're going to go ahead and we'll move into the next question. What role does integration and AI play in the simplification process? So Matt, I'll go ahead and I'll pass this over to you to get started.
Great, thank you. So I think I'd like to answer that in two parts, really. There's an integration part and then there's an AI part. I think they're linked, but I think they're also almost two different buckets here. So I think from an integration point of view, what you want is that your tech stack is seamlessly integrated. The systems that can work together as seamlessly as possible. And I think having making sure that the core system you use, like Tracker, and that the complementary systems that you use are actually feeding it the information and working with it in the way that it should be as much as possible. You know, from a comms point of view, obviously that's what we do at Cloud Call. We're all about the depth of that integration. Also, not all integrations were born equally. Sometimes an integration might just be kind of an outbound action where actually how the two systems deeply overlap and share and capture information between them is kind of what you're looking for. So I think it's really about that seamlessness with which your various systems line up and speak to each other and aid in your workflows.
Those are great points. I think, so I found a couple stats that I think are very interesting. So organizations with integrated systems report a 10 to 15% reduction in operational costs. And then to piggyback off of that, businesses that integrate marketing and sales technologies see a 20% decrease in customer acquisition costs. So those are huge numbers for, you know, cost efficiency and productivity gains.
Yeah, I completely agree. And as whilst we provide tools to our customers that allow them to do this, as a marketer, we're using a whole tech stack of marketing tools that we invest heavily in. And I completely understand that statistic, you know, and obviously the more successful you are, the more leads, the more clients you're hopefully putting into the top of the funnel. But again, if that's not flowing down seamlessly to the next person in line, then that's a lot of, you know, wastage and a missed opportunity or terrible customer service, because actually somebody might be reaching out to you because they really want to talk to you about your product, but for whatever reason, no one knew and they never got back to them. So for me, it's not about selling, it's about serving. And I think if somebody's put a hand up and want to talk to you, it's our job to get to them as quickly as possible to give the information that they've requested. So again, I completely understand and see that statistic. And also I'd like to kind of humanize it a little bit. We talk a lot about tech stacks and processes and workflows, but all of this is really about, you know, in some cases, like the marketing example, a person at a business has a need and they think we might be able to help solve that. So again, how do we make sure that we serve them with the information that they need as quickly as possible so they can make informed decisions? So I think that's just one example.
Yeah, and then it's obviously important to understand where AI can make your team or candidates more efficient on top of that. So rather than adding it in for the sake of it, take the time to do the research, understand where processes are inefficient or there are bottlenecks, and combat that with tech. For example, at Tracker, we've identified numerous problem areas in which we are mitigating risk by developing AI functionality. Don't get me wrong, AI has been in recruitment for decades in disguise. It just hasn't been identified as such. So in Tracker, we've used it for at least 15 years in lots of different ways that, at the time, we didn't actually know it was AI. But, if we talk about sifting through candidates for the right fit for a second, many ranking engines search for a frequency of keywords and skills attained by a candidate by scanning its CV, but by that, it's not enough on its own. So Tracker AI assesses candidate fit and qualifications for a job faster by using an extra layer of ranking criteria, such as using a candidate's past success in similar roles, the fit within the specific client, and even feedback from recruiters who've worked with them before. And obviously this then ensures the most relevant candidates rise to the top of your search results every single time. Taking a candidate's history into consideration, which is obviously the key data any system should hold, enables us to also see how successful they've been in the past at interview level, in jobs, and so on. And some more of the features of AI in Tracker offers recruiters targeted screening questions. So zero in on the perfect fit faster, ask the right things up front, eliminate unsuitable applicants with knockout questions, and focus on top talent. We then have writing the job descriptions as well. So in Tracker, literally, you can have keywords put in. You'll say, I want a brief job description. I want a full job description. This is the job title. These are the skills. And we can then obviously ensure that then creates us a job description with all of those elements embedded in it. Doing it this way reduces bias, improves SEO rankings, ensures consistency, because at the end of the day, we're also able to summarize candidate profiles within the click of a button as well. So in Tracker, where perhaps you've created a candidate with no summary in the CV, or from LinkedIn, for example, you've pulled their information in. With AI in Tracker, you can literally ask it to go and read that candidate's employment history, and it will basically then summarize all of that information and create you a bulleted summary for that candidate's CV. We can obviously allow recruiters to identify the best matches quickly, focus on crucial skills, and we can also prepare recruiters better for interviews with AI. So we have, again, another feature which pinpoints a candidate's strengths and weaknesses. So recruiters know exactly what to cover during the interview without actually spending hours doing any research. We can generate emails, text messages, build personalized custom prompts from interview scheduling to rejection emails in literally seconds. So knowing that there is all of this capability and so much more to come, it makes sense that according to Staffing Hub State report, that we roughly half, which is sort of 48% of respondents, are currently using AI in some way for business applications, and 48% of those who don't yet use AI plan to adopt it this year. So that's a really interesting stat that we sort of came across. Although it's something that everyone is aware of, I would be amiss to not mention the concerns with AI bias. And I spoke at the expo about this at great length. It's true, AI can perpetuate biases and make hiring decisions based on age, location, many other irrelevant factors that consultants might, and therefore consultants might become lazy in the overuse of AI. So while this is something to look out for, AI is meant to make recruiters more efficient, but have the ability to focus on building relationships instead of monotonous tasks. And then additionally, AI might not be able to accurately assess soft skills or cultural fit, which again are equally important factors in hiring decisions, which is why I still will, and I always will believe that, there has to be some human interaction at some point.
Yeah, and I did find another interesting stat from the Allegis group saying that 58% of job seekers are comfortable with chatting with AI bots. And in my opinion, this shows to some extent that candidates are getting more comfortable with this new wave of AI that's available.
Yeah,
So
and
Matt, in your opinion,
yeah,
I guess, do you consider like human better than chatbot?
yeah. So I think I'll answer the chatbot bit first. I think when we are online researching, trying to find out things, trying to reach out and answer questions on things, I think it's becoming perfectly acceptable to speak to an intelligent chatbot, whether it's an AI one or not, that is able to answer my questions quickly and efficiently. So I think it's less about worrying about talking to a robot where it's going to make a life-changing decision on my behalf. It may be that I just have some information that I either need or push down the line, or a question that can be answered more intelligently and quickly any time of day or night using a kind of AI chatbot, and also telling them up front that that's what it is. I think people are probably quite comfortable just having their questions answered. So I think in that respect, but with respect to AI, sort of as a subject, one of the things that we feel quite strongly at Cloud Call is we want to build intelligent systems that help people do their jobs better and more efficiently and more effectively. And by making it intelligent, sometimes AI and artificial intelligence may be the best mechanism to deliver against that objective. What we don't want to do is just add AI to everything for the sake of saying it's AI. So, we're in the business of building smart systems, intelligent systems that help people do their jobs better. And sometimes AI is the mechanism which delivers that. The bit that we also feel quite strongly about is recruitment is a people-oriented business. And recruiters feel quite passionately about matching the right candidate for the right role, with the right culture and the right fit. Yes, they've got targets to hit and metrics and all the rest of it. And AI can definitely remove a lot of the mundane. And the more we can automate, and it doesn't always have to be an AI automation, workflows that help people scale and do more faster, but maybe also do some of the admin lift that slows, recruiters down. But at the end of the day, anything that we can do that moves the technology, moves the process forward, so two human beings can have a meaningful conversation, that's really exciting. What you don't want is a recruiter on the call that's so worried about making notes and entering stuff in the system, they're not actively listening to the candidate. And, if all of that's captured automatically, great. Well, they can just look at that afterwards, or the notes are taken automatically, and then that's poured into the system and stored for later. So again, I think for me, it's much more about how do we augment our teams to do the bit that they do better as people, and a lot of the systems and processes that we can automate through better integrations or with the functions like AI that kind of help us with capabilities that maybe weren't available a year ago. I think it's a really interesting space. So I don't think it's kind of people or robots. I think it's about what work tools do we have that help this very people-oriented business do what they do best. And that's put the right people in the right role with the right culture for the right success. And I think anything we can do to help them do that and do it quicker and match those people faster or more effectively, I think, we're doing our job better.
Yep, absolutely. So we've got just a few minutes left. So let's go into the last question we've got here. So what common challenges do staffing firms face when simplifying their operations, and how can they overcome these obstacles? So I know we've kind of mapped out our processes. We found the right vendor. We now have to execute on that. So it's no small feat here. But I think the first thing is really the resistance to change within the organization, as we saw in our poll at the beginning of the webinar.
Yeah, I was very interested when I saw the poll that the joint first was definitely resistance to change, and I'm really encouraged by seeing that the people with us today recognize that and understand that as a challenge. And one of the things that we find is you cannot underestimate the resistance to change, or adoption is another word for it, which is we've got a whole bunch of people that are used to working in a particular way. And a lot of these people do the same job in a similar way over and over and over and over, and asking them to do what they do every day differently is quite a big lift for them. So, I think what we have found is you're going to make these really significant investments in time in selecting the right vendor and the right work tools. But now you've done it, it will live or die by how well you execute it which is actually by how well it's adopted by your team. So I think it's about how do you bring on the right training and the right processes and, you know, the internal evangelists, and help demonstrate to the people that have to use this new system or process or work tool how it's going to help them do their job better and make their life easier and more effective. So I think, you know, understanding that change management process is not as simple as, you know, implement it, press live, done. It's about how do you bring the people with you on that journey. I think and I can see on this call that people here recognize that challenge, and I think it's probably one of the most critical ones.
Yeah, and then obviously the most key part of Tracker and taking clients on board is training. Without training, it's going to fail. These new systems that you're putting in place, if you want adoption, you have to ensure that the people who are using it are properly trained and continuously trained, or have access to their own training tools. You know, that we've got an academy built into Tracker, so they can go on and fully understand what they need to be doing in order to enhance their day-to-day running of the system, and utilize the capabilities of any new tools that come in. So providing training that goes beyond basic functionality empowers recruiters to leverage the full potential of what they're actually using. There was a stat, according to Gallup, only 12% of employees strongly agree their company provides the training and development they need to do their jobs well, which, you know, speaks volumes. So we are, you know, our biggest aim is to ensure that we handhold sort of from day one to ensure that we don't lose customers, because they've bought into every aspect of that system and they know it inside out.
Yep, absolutely. And so, Matt, I know there's like some additional data security concerns in regards to integrations. We are at time, but if you have just another minute to kind of go through that and some additional tips that we have for different teams, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we need to be mindful of is we are collecting enormous amounts of data about real people, about their details of their potential careers and the placements, you know, where we're going to facilitate in the placement or the filling of these roles. And I think one of the things you have to be very mindful of throughout all of this process and change management and selecting the right vendor is making sure that you are protecting and storing the data that you capture appropriately in a way that is compliant and a way that is also useful for within your business. So it's not just about, you know, the compliance thing, which is paramount importance, and it also varies by market as well, so it's something you need to be mindful of. But it's also about you're capturing huge amounts of data that are so useful if only you knew it. And I think having the ability within your systems and things like AI to be able to go and capture that data that's stored somewhere as a data point, and making that visible for everybody is really important. So I think it's about, we capture lots of data, we want access and to use that data, but I really do think there's a kind of responsibility of us and of people that choose these systems to choose things that are secure and compliant and are going to manage that data in the appropriate and safe way.
Yeah, which is what we always do. You know, we whenever we choose an integration partner, we firstly focus, you know, on the security of that, and like we have with Cloud Call.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, everybody. I know like I said, we're at time. So thanks, Lou and Matt, for joining us today. Any closing pieces of wisdom that you want to embark upon, everybody?
Lou, why don't you go first?
Thank you. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, well, you know, from all of this, it's evident data's the key to your success, as long as you have the correct tech to back it up. And what we always, we always go on about at Tracker is one source of truth that beats an abundance of bolt-ons as well. So, you know, you've got that great data, get the correct tech, get everything under one roof, and I don't think you can go wrong when it comes to ensuring you've got great processes.
Great. Okay. I think if we kind of go back to the topic of the conversation really today, it was about how do we sort of simplify and a complex system and a complex way of working with all these amazing work tools that we have. I think it's about having a really clear objective in mind of what you're trying to achieve as a business and what role each of these work tools play within delivering against that objective, and choose your vendors wisely. Choose these partners that are going to help you be successful wisely, and make sure that they're aligned to what you're doing and have a really clear understanding of what you're trying to achieve and how they can help you be successful. And I think that's where we're really proud to sort of partner with Tracker, because that's where people kind of come to us, because they want somebody who understands recruitment, who understands their particular way of working. They don't want just a generic solution, because there are others out there that do a very good generic job. They want somebody who understands specifically their challenges, and I think that's what we both do so well.